one of the challenges I see with goal setting and vision boards and that kind of stuff is it tends to lean very materialistic, events, lifestyle, that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I think all that stuff's great. However, it's a byproduct of something bigger, right? And as coaching people, what I find is when we run into, roadblocks, difficulties, frustrations, people give up, right? People get frustrated, they give up, or they burn out, or they're like, I don't know why I'm doing this, or maybe I'm not on the right path, and they start to look for other options. I always call it the cul-de-sac or the forest, right? They're either stuck in a cul-de-sac or they're wandering through the forest, right? It's like, we got to come back out of the forest. And it always comes down to this conversation, right? So prior to you getting deep into your vision boards, prior to you getting deep into your 411s and your GPSs, this is a deeper conversation that I think is a really, really important conversation. And how many of you have read The One Thing? Yeah. It's a pretty good book, right? And I mean, if you've read Gary Keller's other books, they're all relatively similar. About 2/3 of the book is why to do it, and 1/3 is what to do, right? So, and it's relatively repetitive. Now, the cool thing is one of Gary Keller's mentors was Tony Robbins, right? And he tells the story about going to, you need to unleash the power within and removing limiting beliefs and all that stuff. So when I read the book, especially this chapter, this brought me back because I've been coaching for probably 6 or 7 years with Tony Robbins. I was in a private mastermind group with him. I went through his Tony Robbins University and all that. So this chapter really resonated with me. And I think that's why I was like, okay, if we're going to do vision boards, what do we need to get to first? We got to get down to what is the power of our focused thinking to unleash our potential, right? And unlock that potential with us. So extraordinary results, right? Extraordinary results. When we look at other people and we see what they've accomplished on a very high level, we often see just a very small piece of what the bigger picture is, right? Like when we see somebody who's achieved something outstanding or amazing, like name somebody that you admire that has achieved something that is just kind of beyond belief. Who do you think? Elon Musk, right? Yeah, and here's somebody who's going and he was one of the partners with PayPal, made not a ton of money, $100 million. I think he and his brother Kimball split when they sold PayPal to eBay because eBay couldn't figure out how to do a payment system. You think he would have started with that one, right? So they sell PayPal to eBay. eBay was their #1 customer, so that's an interesting story. And then he comes back and he starts another tech company. I don't think that took off. And then he purchased Tesla from 2 guys that I think were up in like Seattle area. I think the original Tesla was up in Seattle. He didn't create Tesla. He purchased it and then changed an entire industry, right? Now, what drives Elon Musk? Anybody read the book by Walter Isaacson about Elon Musk? Money? Maybe, probably not. I think he's got more money than he'll ever spend in 20 lifetimes, so it's probably not money. Because if it was money, he would have stopped by now, right? Like, what'd you say? Power? Mm-hmm. Influence? No, that's not what he says. No? So what does he say? He was inspired when he was a teenager. He was inspired as a young man, as a teenager. Think about his other companies. What other company does he have? SpaceX. What is SpaceX mission? To do what? What are they working on right now? What does the heavy rocket do? His goal is to populate Mars. That's his goal. Since he was a young child, he set that as a vision and a goal. So what we see as somebody who's very profitable and very productive is just the very tip that's the smaller thing that sits on top of his purpose and his priority. Okay? His purpose is so much bigger that we can't even comprehend that. Like, I mean, it's one thing to be a kid and say, hey, I want to populate Mars. It's another thing to actually build a rocket that could get there. Like, what the heck, right? So his purpose and his priority is so much bigger, right? How about Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs is another great example. Successful. Yeah. Now, he had failures, right? He got fired from his own company when he was 27 years old, sold all his stock of Apple except for one share, so he had access to the reports. He kept one share of the company he built, okay? Went out, built another company called Next, right? So it was a computer company that was really driven by graphics. They used the technology to Next to support another company, but built by a guy named David Lasseter. Who's Lasseter? Do you guys know this?
Pixar guy.
Pixar. Mm-hmm. So he funds Pixar, becomes the largest investor of Pixar, uses the technology from Next to support Pixar's graphics, sells Pixar to who? Disney. When Steve Jobs died, he owned more of Disney than the Disneys. That's how much he sold Pixar to Disney for. He owned 7% of Disney when he passed away. So he goes to Disney, sells Pixar to Disney. Apple's failing, about to go in the toilet. The board of directors says, we need Steve back. He's the visionary. He's the guy. They bring him back in. He says, I'll come back, but I'm not going to work for a penny. Purpose. Right? Because if you're not working for a penny, you're working for purpose. He says, I won't work for a penny. I'll come back on one condition. All of you board members are fired, or I'm not coming back. They said, we don't have a choice. The company's going under anyways. We're out. They walk away. I think they kept one, which is the guy who founded Oracle. What's his name? Ellison. Yep, Ellison. He stays on the board. So what does Steve Jobs do next? What's the next technology boom that Apple had?
The iPhone.
Before that?
No, iPod.
The iPod and iPhone, which had the interface, the technology. Where does this technology come from? Next and Pixar. He uses that technology to build the iPhone, reinvents a whole other industry, right? Reinvented iPod, reinvented music, reinvented telephones, saved his company. Obviously, then he went back and said, not only are you going to have to pay me, but you have to buy me the most expensive jet ever sold to an individual human. It was a $140 million jet that he had built, custom built for him. Okay, what's his purpose? What was his purpose? Kind of to put a ding in the universe. He wanted to put a ding in the universe. He wanted to, when he passed away, to be remembered forever. To the point where when he got diagnosed with cancer, he went to the #1 biographer in the world, Walter Isaacson, and says to Walter Isaacson, I want you to write my biography. And what does Walter Isaacson say? He did say that, yeah. And he said, you're not somebody I want to write about. You're not somebody who's significant enough. He wrote about George Washington. He wrote about Benjamin Franklin. He wrote about famous people that made an impact on history. And that's when Steve Jobs said, I have 6 months to live. Walter Isaacson was the second person he told that he was dying because he wanted to orchestrate his legacy. He wanted to orchestrate his legacy to be remembered as somebody who put a ding in the universe. That was his purpose. Now, he reinvented how many industries? Computers, movies, phones, music, right? So, purpose, priority, productivity, and profit, okay? So what you see is determined by what you don't see. The more productive people are, the more purposeful the more productive people are the more purpose and priority are pushing them forward and driving them. So the purpose and priority is what's driving them forward. When you connect your purpose, priority, and productivity determines your profitability, right? So if you're somebody who's like, I don't understand why I'm not making the money I'm making, or why maybe I don't have the profits left over at the end of the month, there's more month than there is money. It's because maybe your purpose, your priority is not in alignment, and so we're not getting productivity. In real estate, as an agent, what does our productivity look like? What are the things that we talk about when we talk about productivity?
Appointments.
Agreements.
Conversations.
Under contract. Conversations could be, yeah, if you're not having them. Yeah. What else? Closings, right? Closings. And then on the back end of that would be budgeting and then profitability, right? That's what we talk about when we talk about productivity. So I'm not going to look, but if you're struggling with making contacts or setting appointments or following up with leads or any of those things, it might be because your purpose and your priority is out of whack. Is that fair? Right? Not to say that you don't care or you don't want to be successful or there's no shame in this room. This isn't about shaming. It's about asking the questions, what's out of alignment for me right now? Is it that I'm out of alignment with my purpose? Am I out of alignment with my priorities that's affecting my productivity that ultimately affects my profitability? Our purpose sets our priority determines productivity, that our actions are produced. So purpose, we're going to define these. Purpose, it's where we're going and what's important to us. It's the underlying driver, right? It's the underlying driver. Priority, what we put the greatest importance on. And that's very unique to each and every one of us, right? Like, I know real estate agents who they do real estate just because they want to have relationships with other people. They want to have the relationship. They say, if I can't have the relationship, I wouldn't do real estate, right? Like, I do real estate for the relationship. Then there's people who say, I do this because I'm funding my retirement, or I'm doing this because I'm providing for my family, right? Here's what we have to get rid of. There's not a right or wrong answer, guys. Like, it doesn't have to be to provide children in the world with socks and shoes and clothing, right? It doesn't have to be altruistic. What was Bill Gates's purpose? Remember that?
Put a computer in every home or something like that?
Put a computer on every desk in the world. I think it was America, but yeah, maybe it was the world. I think that happened. Yeah. In one way or another, right? It got there. Productivity. This is ultimately the actions that we're taking, okay? So purpose, where we're going and why it's important to us. Priority, what we're currently placing our greatest importance on. That's where our priority is. So you could look at, have you ever heard somebody say, if you look at somebody's calendar, you can see where they place their importance, right? You can see it. You look at their calendar. What are they doing every day? That's where their priority is. And productivity, the actions that you're taking. Okay, so we're gonna do a little exercise. You guys remember Grinch, right? Or Scrooge, the other Grinch, the original Grinch is Scrooge. Now, you all know the story of Scrooge, right? You seriously don't know the story of
What?
Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol, right? That was Scrooge-o?
Oh, now I got it.
You weren't saying it right.
So the story of Grinch is, or the story of Scrooge, I keep saying Grinch. The story of Scrooge is he was a cheap man who focused his time and energy on making wealth, right? And when he wasn't earning it, he was counting it, right? That was his whole thing. And he was visited one night, I think it was Christmas Eve, by 3 ghosts. The ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future.
Now I know.
You remember?
Yeah.
Okay. And each of those showed him an alternative view of how he was living his life. And the last ghost, of course, shared with him where his life is going to end up, right? It's where he's going to end up. So before he was visited that night, what was, I almost called the Grinch again. What was the Scrooge's purpose? What was his purpose?
Well, create wealth.
Create wealth. Yeah, for
Himself.
himself. Where was his priorities?
Well, build it.
Yeah, for him, money, right? Money was his priority. And then what did he produce?
Loneliness.
Misery for others.
Misery for others. Loneliness, misery for others, but he produced a massive amount of wealth. I think he was the wealthiest man in town, right? He was the wealthiest and he was stingy with his money. Now, after the ghosts came and visited him, right, his purpose changed, right? His purpose changed. And so what became his purpose afterwards? Taking care of others. Yes, focus shifted from the accumulation of wealth to others. His priority was taking care of others, right? And then what did he produce?
Happiness.
Yeah, happiness, right?
Himself and everyone around him too.
For himself and everyone around him. And what's interesting is in the one thing, which I don't remember from the movie, but I was reading the chapter on it, he talks about that afterwards he continued to earn, but instead of earning for the accumulation of wealth, it was to continue to earn to share with others. I don't remember that part of the movie. I don't know if that was actually in there or if that was ad-libbed.
He brought a turkey.
What's that?
He brought a turkey.
Yeah.
When him and Tiny Tim became very good friends.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So who we are and where we want to go determines what we do and what we ultimately accomplish. Now I added ultimately because what is the challenge is we want things to happen fast and things don't always happen fast, right? So who we are, right? Who we are here and where we want to go determines the actions that we take and ultimately what we accomplish. Do we all agree with that? Is that true? So now here's the challenge though. The Scrooge ultimately got what? Happiness. When we think about goal setting, as we're going into this goal setting season, if you think about the things that you're writing down as goals, don't they all have in common to make you happy? Right? Like, isn't that the underlying theme? Like, if I make X amount of money, then I'll be happy. If I take my family on these vacations, then I'll be happy. Is happiness not the root of anybody's goal? Is anybody like their ultimate goal is not to be happier? No. It's kind of the thing, right? I'm going to read this section to you because this is the hard part, right? So this is called the beggar's bowl. You guys might be familiar with this story. Upon coming out of his palace one morning and encountering a beggar, the king asks, "What do you want?" The beggar laughingly says, "I ask you though you can, you ask as though you can fill my desire." Offended, the king replies, "Of course I can. What is it?" The beggar warns, "Think twice before you promise me anything." Now the beggar was no ordinary beggar, but the king's past life master, who had promised in their former life, "I will come to try and wake you in your next life. This life you have missed, but I will come again to help you." The king, not recognizing his old friend, insisted, "I will fulfill anything you ask, for I am the powerful king who can fulfill any desire." The king said, "It is very simple desire. If you can fill my beggar's bowl." "Of course," said the king. He insisted his vizier, V-I-Z-I-E-R, visor, I don't know, to fill the man's begging bowl with the money. The vizier did, but when the money was poured into the bowl, it disappeared. So he poured more and more, but the moment he did, it would disappear. The beggar's bowl remained empty. Word spread throughout the kingdom, and a huge crowd gathered, and the prestige and powerful king were at stake. So he told his vizier, if my kingdom to be lost, I am ready to lose it, but I cannot be defeated by this beggar. He continued to empty his wealth into the bowl. Diamonds, pearls, emeralds. His treasury was becoming empty. And yet the beggar bowl seemed bottomless. Everything put into it immediately disappeared. Finally, as the crowd spooned in, utter silence stood in. They didn't spoon in. Should have brought my glasses. Might need somebody else to hold it. Finally, as the crowd stood in utter silence, the king dropped to the beggar's feet and admitted defeat. You are victorious, but before you go, fulfill my curiosity. What is the secret of the begging bowl? The beggar humbly replied, there is no secret. It is simply made of human desire.
Which is never fulfilled.
Just never fulfilled. That's the curse, right? That's the curse. Who of us has set a goal, big or small, doesn't matter, has set a goal and achieved it and felt that excitement, right? That positivity, right? Achieved it. And then what happened next? Goals. How did that feeling? How long did that feeling last?
Week.
A week? Yeah. And then what?
One more, keep working.
You want more, right? And that is the challenge with human desire. Securing something we want can spike our happiness for a moment. Sooner or later, our happiness wanes and wanes because we become accustomed to what we had acquired. You just ruined my No more crunchy wrappers, people. Sooner or later, here, we're going to do this for the socials. Sooner or later, our happiness wanes because, see, now you wrote it.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, you want?
Sooner or later, our happiness wanes because we become accustomed to what we acquire.
Oh, that was good. You did a much better job on that. Thank you.
I'm here for you.
We don't stop or slow down to appreciate what we have because we're jumping from thing to the next thing. We ricochet from achieving to acquiring, acquiring to achieving, without ever taking the time to enjoy it. Wow, that hits me hard. Right, I've done that, right? Like I've done that. I mean, I've set big goals and accomplished big goals. And then as soon as I get it, I'm like, what's next? Right?
Just closing on your property.
Yeah, closing on the.
No, take it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I was excited for about 4 hours. And immediately stressed.
Yes.
So we have to remind ourselves that happiness happens on the way to achievement, right? We have to enjoy the journey, be aware of the journey, what we're doing, why we're doing something, right? What we're going to ultimately come. What is the overall arching theme, right, that we're looking to accomplish? So here's what I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to not think of money as a purpose. Now, I'm not saying that money can't make you happy for a period of time. I promise, I've been poor, I grew up homeless, I've lived in cars, I've eaten out of trash cans. And not once, multiple times. I've made a lot of money. I've been a multimillionaire, and I lost it. Money is better than not having money. I promise you. You don't have to eat out of a trash can to learn that lesson. However, money is not a purpose. Money ultimately won't make you happy. Like Scrooge, you will always want to have more to make you happier. And someone will always be richer than you, right? Like we think of Elon Musk as extremely wealthy. not compared to King Tut, right? King Tut had, in comparison, like 400 times the amount of wealth that Elon Musk has, right? So there's always going to be somebody richer in some way. If it's not money, it's in family. If it's not family, it might be time, right? Somebody's always going to have things that you're not going to have. And money is a horrible motivator. Why? There's two reasons money is a horrible motivator. One, what happens when you achieve it? You make the money. If money's your purpose and you make the money. I set a goal to be a millionaire at the age of 25. 25 years old, in 6 months, I achieved $1 million net worth, signed off. I had my CPA sign off, $1 million net worth. Was I happy? You knew me. Was I happy?
Just busy, just still busy.
Massively stressed.
Yeah.
Because if my purpose is $1 million net worth, what's my concern?
Keeping
Keeping it. Then I went into fear. What if I don't sustain this? What if I lose it? So then what is my alternative? What's the alternative? I have to make so much more that that won't be a problem. But it was a problem, right? And then when you anchor that as your purpose, then when your money fluctuates, as it does, like money is like energy, it comes and goes, right? It's like the waves of an ocean, it flows in and then it flows out, and then it flows in and it flows out. Now, if you ever been to the ocean and you try to, like, the tide comes in and you put your arms around the water and you get your hands down in the sand and you try to hold that water, it just slowly leaks away, right? But if you put your hands in and the tide comes in, it's just going to overflow you anyways. So why are we trying to control the tide? It's just the tide. It flows in and flows out, right? So money is a horrible motivator. Now, what happens if you set money as a goal, right? You set money as a goal and you don't achieve it. You're broke. Yeah. So here's a great example. Who had a strong goal for 2024? Yeah, big goals. We had big goals.
Mm-hmm.
We did better than we did the prior year. Yeah. We almost doubled our business year over year.
No, almost tripled.
Almost tripled year over year. But we didn't get anywhere near our goal. Okay. Big goal for 2024. 2024, we sold fewer homes in the United States in 2024 than we did in 2014. That's the last time we sold less than 4,000 homes in the United States, or 4 million homes in the United States. It's 2014. We sold 3.8 million homes this year. Do you think that tide affects our business plan? Yeah. So if we said our purpose is the money, how would we be feeling about ourselves right now?
Yeah.
Defeated, like crap. Yeah. We didn't do it. We suck.
Yeah. Hang up your license.
She'd be blaming me. I know it's her, right? Like, we know, right? I come up with the ideas. She's got to implement everything. It's a great relationship. It's perfect. I can work from home in bed. She's got to drive out till 11 o'clock at night. It's perfect. So that's why money's a horrible motivator, because when the tide affects us, we can't make it about us, right? But if our purpose is something other than money, then it keeps us focused, right? As Gary Keller says, where did it go? It's on the next slide. He says, your purpose becomes the stickiness that keeps your shoes to the trail, keeps your shoes on the path, right? He also says, truly financially wealthy people are those that have enough money coming in without having to work to finance their purposeful life, right? And as you know, Gary Keller's a big investor. Happiness comes when you have a bigger purpose than having more stuff or money. Having more stuff or money, I don't know, that's a typo. I think it's right on the workbook and wrong on here, but that, then the more stuff or money you can fulfill, right? Here we go. So here's the power of purpose. When you have a definite purpose for your life, clarity comes faster. You will have more conviction on your direction, which leads to faster decisions. Your first deciders, okay, now this is important, right? So your definite purpose for life gives you clarity so you can make your decisions faster and have more conviction. People that decide faster get first choice. People that decide faster get first choice. So for us, like this year is a great example, right? We're barreling through this year, go, go, go. The market starts to shift and we're like, we have to change our strategy. We got to pivot our strategy because we're focused on the objective. We pivot quicker. The early bird gets the opportunities first, right? Moving into a market with a strategy first, you can have the lion's share of the market before somebody else enters. So you get the best choices. Better choices lead to better experiences and ultimately better outcomes. Okay? And purpose gives you the extra motivation to persevere when things get difficult or challenging. Okay? Now we got to do the hard work. Right? This is where we're going to get into this. So this is why I want you to take a minute and think about your purpose. Now, again,
Yeah, we missed the last one. Gives you the extra motivation to persevere when things become
I
difficult.
love the workbook. Look how good it keeps y'all focused. It's been years since I've created a workbook, and I was like, this is definitely a workbook exercise class. This will be great. Okay. So here's your questions, and I want you to spend about 5 or 10 minutes on this. Again, nobody's going to read your homework. This is not about being altruistic. But I'm going to ask you to think of things other than money, right? Think of things other than money. What gets you up in the morning, right? What wakes you up? Like, what ultimately gets you excited about starting the day? What keeps you going when you're worn or tied down? Right? Why did you decide to get into real estate? Was there something about the industry or the experience of real estate that you wanted to make an impact or make a change to? I think some of the best agents that I've ever met that are really high producers, that are producing far beyond their individual needs, this is their motivator. There was something about the industry that they felt was broken that they could improve on, that they could do better. Sarah Reynolds, I talk about Sarah a lot. I think she was at 2,200 signs last year, 48 million in commission income. Okay, she's 40. I think she's making a little bit more money than she could probably spend. What is her conversation about her goals? What does she always say, Sophia?
Helping families, how many families she wants to help.
How many families we can help. We do a better job than the other agents out there. It's our mission to help them so they don't have a bad experience. We hear it every week at her team meetings, every week. So why did you decide to get into real estate? And lastly is, what is something that you would like to accomplish someday? Okay, take like 5-10 minutes and just start spitballing some things. We're like 2 more minutes, and then we're, if you're open to sharing, love to hear what you've got. I'll read Gary Keller's too.
I'll share. I just want to participate.
We'll go about 30 more seconds then. Such a good noise. Like, there could not be a better noise. Like, is the camera still on? Socials. Okay, Haley, would you like to start?
Sure. My purpose questions?
Yeah, what would you like to share? What would you like to?
Well, my desire to provide for my family and to make a difference is what gets me up in the morning. And what keeps me going when I'm feeling tired and worn down is the support of my family, that obviously their love and support, and the fact that failure is not an option for me. I don't have a backup plan. So it's kind of like, get out of that negative mindset, right? What's that saying? You can sleep when you die.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be in real estate, but it started when I was about 18 years old. It was the idea of a lifestyle, the idea of being in sales, the idea of the money and that sort of a thing. But 10 years later, when I finally went through the struggle of getting licensed and I got licensed, I realized that it was more so to help people through the same struggles that I had been through. And that is what really drives me in my personal real estate business every day, is to really truly make a difference.
In your customers and And your
and my agents. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. What is something you'd like to accomplish?
Real estate related?
Doesn't
Just
have to be.
understand for me, real estate's my thing. So it's really to launch my proprietary training system at a large scale to the public. That is a huge goal for me. It's something I'd like to accomplish in 2025.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Good job. Anybody else want to share? Anybody else? Feel compelled? Here, I'll read Gary's. Gary's is interesting. So Gary's is on page 145. And he talks about like how difficult these questions are, right? He acknowledges these are hard questions, right? He said, discover your purpose by asking yourself what drives you. What's the thing that gets you up in the morning and keeps you going when you're tired and worn down? I sometimes refer to this as your big why. It's why you're excited with your life. It's why you're doing what you're doing. I intentionally didn't put big why because I feel like it sets us in the wrong. It makes it too altruistic, right? In Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about the meaning for people there's three reasons people create or people live a life, right? One is to experience something. They want to experience life or experience seeing the world or whatever. 2 is to create. That could be art, that could be music, that could be children. And 3 is to make sense of unavoidable suffrage. Because we've all had suffrage in our lives and some things that we've created and some things that have just been unavoidable to us. And to create meaning in that, right, which if you know the story of Viktor Frankl, the book was written as his observation of going through the Holocaust, of why one person would want to live and why one person would want to just give up and die. And so he, in his discovery is why am I the one writing this book, is to make sense of his unavoidable suffrage, of suffering through that. So ultimately what he says is it doesn't matter. It's individualistic to everyone. It doesn't have to be this great big thing. It could be to tend to a garden. It could be to travel the world. It could be to raise your child. It could be, to provide for your family, right? Ultimately, it's individual to each and every one of us. So here's what Gary says. Absent of a great answer, pick a direction. Purpose may sound heavy, but it doesn't have to be. Think of it as simply the one thing that you want for your life, or you want your life to be about more than any other thing. Try writing down something you'd like to accomplish and then describe how you do it. We're going to go into that next. For me, it looks like this. My purpose is to help people live their greatest life possible through my teaching, coaching, and writing. So then, what does my life look like? Teaching is my one thing, and it has been for 30 years. At first, it was teaching clients about the real estate market and how to make great decisions. Next, it was teaching salespeople in a classroom during sales meetings and one-on-one. Later, it's teaching business classes, and then it became teaching high-performance models and strategies for high achievement. And then in the last 10 years, it's been teaching seminars on specific life-building principles. What I teach is what I then coach, and it is supported. Let's try that again. What I teach is what I then coach, and it is supported by what I write. Pick a direction, then start marching down that path. See how much you like it. Time brings clarity. And if you find you don't like it, you can always change your mind. It's your life. Now or never. What's the next line of that song? So, anybody else want to share what they have? All right, I'm going to switch PowerPoints here really quick. Okay. This is the workbook you guys are working through right now. Okay, so this is how we tie it together with the exercises that you have. So remember in the book he says, try writing down something you'd like to accomplish and then describe how you do it. Now, what's the saying? I think this has been attributed to Bill Gates. It's been attributed to a lot of people, which is you can accomplish, what is it? People underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years, but overestimate what they can accomplish in 1. Guilty, right? I set my 1-year goals massive, but then my 5-year, my 10-year goals are probably lowering my expectations a little lower than what the potential actually is. So when you think about this previous slide, when we talked about this down here, is what is something you'd like to accomplish? If you were to add in 10 years, how would you answer that? This is something I'd like to accomplish in 10 years. Knowing that we underestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, or we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. What is something that you want to accomplish in 10 years? And this becomes your someday goal, right? This is your bigger goal. This is your overarching purpose. The thing, like, if you were to write a book about your life, okay? Let's just say this is the book of your life. Let's just say this is the book of your, this is for the socials. Got to keep this stream going. Let's just say this is the book of your life. And we turn to the last chapter of this book, okay? And we read the last chapter, and what the last chapter is about is all the things that you've accomplished in your life. All the things that you're the most proud of, okay? No, I don't think anybody has in there, I bought a BMW in 2000, right? Like that might have been cool in 2000, but it doesn't matter in 2040, right? Like nobody's looking back going, I had a 540, right? So what are the things that you accomplished that you're the most proud of? What is your overarching purpose, right? Gary Keller said is to teach people, right, how to have their greatest life. He kind of lives that every day, right? He really does do that every day. So what is your someday goal? You're going to write that down, okay? You're going to write that down. That's the end of your book. Then what you're going to do is you're going to turn to the next chapter forward, right before that, which is 5 years from now, okay? Based on your goal, your someday goal, what has to happen in 5 years to know that you're on track to achieve your someday goal, your overarching goal? What has to happen in those 5 years? Then you're going to go to the next chapter prior to that. See, we're working from the back of the book forward. Our 1 year goal, based on my 5 year goal, what has to happen in the next year for me to know I'm on track for my 5 year goal? Next chapter. 6 months or 1 month. Based on your 1 month, based on your 1 year goal, what's one thing you can do this month to ensure you're on track? Then your weekly, what can I do this week to ensure I'm on track for my 1 month goal? What can I do each day to ensure I'm on track for my weekly goals? And then what can I do right now? Right? Because the journey of 1,000 steps starts
Right now.
with your first step. So what's something you can do right now?
Take a Sean Moudry class.
I know, you're like, why am I in this? But action. A class is an action. I mean, how many classes do we go to and we write a list of to-dos and we shut that book and never open it up again? I have a whole stack of books sitting on my desk, right? I have a whole stack. That's right, yeah. But remember, this is your overarching purpose. That's what goes here. And I think this is where people miss the mark on these exercises, because what most people do when they just get this exercise, especially in a business format, what number do they write here at the top? What do they write? I just gave it away. What do they write at the top? What number? What do they put? What if 90% of people write at that? $1 million.
Will be a million.
Is that your potential? That's my first thought. Is that your potential? Is that what you want to be known for? Like when you pass away, is that the last chapter of the book? It says, chapter 10, Rudy Alcaraz died as a millionaire. The end. Maybe. Maybe it does for some. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. You know, money comes and goes. Comes and goes. Here's the other thing I'll tell you. If I had $10 million and you said, can I borrow $1 million? Or let's reverse this. You have $10 million. And I came to you and said, can I borrow $1 million? What is the next logical question you're going to ask?
For what?
For what?
What's the interest rate?
What are you going to use it for? What's the interest rate? Okay, let's say I'm going to pay you back. What's a reasonable interest rate that you would accept to lend me $1 million?
10%.
Okay, I'm going to borrow $1 million at 10%. Now, are you going to ask me what I'm going to do with the money for 10%? You probably want to, because I'm buying a Lamborghini, 2 of them, and I'm going to crash those into each other.
Because you got 6 months.
You want to write me the check? Are you going to write me the check? How about a 20% interest?
How are you gonna pay me back?
Oh, with whatever's left over with the parts. What interest rate are you going to lend me that $1 million at? 50%. Money doesn't follow desire. Money follows intention. Money doesn't follow desire, it follows intention. So when you're looking at the mirror of desire, which is, I want this is the mirror of desire, the beggar's bowl. What's your intention? That's what's going to make the money flow. That's what we were talking about in when we go to this slide here. That's what profit comes from, is intention, priority, right? Purpose, priority is your intention. That's where money's going to show up. It's not going to show up. It's not going to show up based on desire. So this is your intention. Now, if I said, will you give me $1 million? And I said, or if I said, will you give me $1 million? And you said, what are you going to use it for? Then I say, hey, I have a great idea that's going to impact and change the lives of many people. And it's going to make people's lives better. It's going to make the world a better place, assuming I have an idea that would do that. You might give me the money. You might donate the money, right? Like Bill Gates right now donated how many hundreds of millions of dollars to generate sustainable water containment systems? Because that's his big impact now, is he's trying to make the world more manageable for third world countries. So it's like you poop in the tube and it turns into water, right? That's a machine he built. Spent hundreds of millions of dollars. There's no ROI on that machine. He's not saying pay me back. He donated the money because the purpose is what the money went for, right? Okay, so you have to start with your purpose. What has to happen in 5 years to know that you're on track to achieve your purpose? What has to happen in 1 year to know you're on track to achieve your 5-year goal? What has to happen in a month to ensure you're on track to achieve your 1-year goal? What has to happen each week? That's not just 1 week, it's every week for that next year to ensure you're on track to hit your 1-year goal. What has to happen each day to make sure you're on track to hit your weekly goal? And then what can you do right now to make sure you're on track to achieve your goal tomorrow? Has anybody ever done this exercise? What was your results from it?
I accomplished a few things,
Yeah.
didn't follow through enough.
Did you keep it in front of you?
Every day.
Here was my thought. I remember the first time I was reading the one thing. I was a boat coach, right? So I was living on an airplane, traveling all around. Like literally, they'd send you to Atlanta, and then Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then San Diego, because that makes sense. So it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in San Diego. So I'm flying to San Diego. I think I had 2 layovers, and I'm reading the one thing. And I was a little at that point, I'll call it disenfranchised. And I'm reading the one thing. Little disenfranchised. And I'm reading the one thing critically. Like, I hate this stupid book, and I hate that I have to read it, kind of attitude. But I'm reading it because they told me I had to read it, right? I'm reading it. I get to this exercise on the airplane. I remember exactly where I was. I was flying. I was on the last leg heading into San Diego. And I'm reading this section, and I'm like, I don't believe it. I don't believe this is true. And so I wrote up here, movie star. I did. Swear to God. I don't have the book anymore. At least I might. I'll look at my own.
You did want to do that. It's obvious.
Movie star. 5-year goal. What would have to happen in 5 years to make sure you're a movie star? I was like, well, I'm not a great actor, and I'm not taking acting lessons, so that's not going to work. Comedian. If I was a really good comedian, comedians become movie stars all the time. That's probably a better thing. So I wrote top comedian. Then I wrote 1-year goal. What do I need to do? I need to do a certain number of comedy shows. Then what do I have to do within a month? Present my first comedy show, right? What do I have to do this week? Write it. Write out 5 minutes. What do I need to do in a day? Probably call Comedy Works and book a time, right? And then what do I need to do right now? Which was write some stupid jokes. Swear to God, look, Heather's like, what? Did I ever tell you this?
Yes, I've heard this.
Okay. And I almost did. I did look at Comedy Works and like look at their website, but I never did book it beyond that. I went down.
Open mic.
Open mic. I did look at
I
it.
want to hear the jokes.
I never wrote, I think I wrote 2, and they're probably in the book. But here was the aha. The aha for me wasn't that, oh my gosh, I should become a movie star. Okay? The aha was, I'm on an airplane in seat CA, no resources, no Wi-Fi, nothing. That entire business plan came out of my head in 30 minutes. I didn't have to get advice. I didn't have to call a coach. I didn't have to ask a friend. I didn't have to read a book. It was already, yeah, I didn't need the book. It was already in my head. The answers to the problem were already in my head. Now, if I executed that plan, is there a chance I could have become a movie star? Yeah. It's in you. You just have to write the plan. You just have to write the plan. This is how it breaks down on your long-term goals, right? Someday goals, personal business. So this is your purpose goals. 5-year goals, 1-year goals, right? We want to be well-rounded. Nobody wants to work themselves into the grave except Tyson to make his measly $1 million and die. Dude, I see you so much more than this. I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you, nobody in this room is going to retire on $1 million. It's not enough money, guys. Do the math. It's not. You're going to be subject to Social Security or supported by other people if you have less than, I think it's like 2.2 million right now. You need to retire. And guess what retirement age is now?
That's pauper retire.
It's like,
2.2 million.
I know, right? It's like 66 is retirement now. You have to make more money. You have to put more money away, right?
66 is still young.
Well, good thing, because we're all gonna be working till we're 80 if we don't start putting money away, right? So this is why I was so excited to get that rental property. I'm like, oh, thank God, there's a chance. Okay, so my one thing for the year, priorities, right? So this is your GPS. So one thing is your goal for the year. Now, where are we getting this goal from? 2 pages ago. Your 1-year goal. Priority 1, this is one thing you can do to achieve that goal. Priority 2, another thing you can do to achieve that goal. Priority 3, another thing you can do to achieve that goal. Now, if you want to do this on a high level, each one of these individual priorities will achieve this goal, and the other 2 are redundancies. Does that make sense? The other 2 are redundancies to achieve this. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it's a nice exercise. And then this is how you break down your month into smaller chunks or weekly goals, right? Smaller chunks. So your annual goal written up top, remind you, your monthly goal for personal and business. And then at the start of the week, you write down what you'd like to accomplish. At the end of the week, you analyze to see if you accomplished it or not. If you didn't, you move it over, work on your next week, review, work on your next week, review, work on your next week. And that's called your 4-1-1. 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. Any questions on how that works? Here's what I want you to focus on. I don't even care if you do these other ones. I really don't. Do this exercise. What was the title of the class?
Your potential.
Yeah, the power of focused thinking. This is what we're talking about. You think about this every single day. Every single day. Did I do my daily goal to achieve what I need to do this week? Did I do my weekly goal to achieve what I need to do each month? Did I achieve this month what I need to do to achieve my year? Right? Now remember, the tide flows on all of us, right? Jim Rohn says, it's not the blowing of the wind, it's the set of your sail. The wind's gonna blow this way, the wind's gonna blow that way, right? Like now people are like, oh, the market's so bad. Just change the set of your sail, right? Move your sail, go the other way, right? Somebody's being successful today. So yes, the blowing of the winds are gonna hit us all. However, are you steadfast with your purpose and your priority that your feet are sticky enough to stay on the trail? Right? That's what we're doing. Okay, that's it. Any questions?